My cousin made fun of my kicks. Then the designer said she inspired my latest line. Julia's shoes were a walking disaster, or at least that's what Sophie said with that sharp, sneering grin that never left her face. The shoes? Picture bright neon green spikes shooting out like a sci-fi cactus, laced with glittering chains that clinked with every step, and soles that blinked with tiny electric lights. A bizarre mess, right? But to Julia, those kicks were her armor. Tonight, in the middle of a buzzing New York loft in Brooklyn, the heart of art and chaos and restless dreams, the air was thick with perfume, sweat, and unforgiving ambition. The giant fashion event had drawn every restless eye and sharp tongue. Julia's shoes cut through the sea of beige heels and shiny stilettos like flames bursting in a gray sky. And Sophie? She didn't hold back. "Who's gonna wear those without getting laughed at?" Sophie hissed, her voice low but dripping with venom. The words hit Julia like ice. Totally over the line. The room felt like a cage, everyone circling, eyes sharp and cold. Julia felt sweat prick her brow. Her legs shook, but the shoes held firm, demanding attention. Then the room shifted. A tall figure approached, slicked back, silver hair, dark eyes that seemed to swallow the light. It was Carmine, the legendary designer famous for breaking every rule in the fashion world. The crowd parted as he moved, like the sea opening for a storm. He stopped in front of Julia and lowered his voice, so low it felt like a secret being poured directly into her soul. "Your shoes, raw, reckless, alive. They inspired my latest line. Those wild spikes, the electric chaos, all you." His praise hit like a thunderbolt, shocking Julia out of her fear. Joy surged, wild and bright, along with a knot of anxiety tightening inside. Sophie's sneer burned sharper than the neon glow. What did this mean? Acceptance or a monster waiting to devour her? Sophie took a step back, her eyes shadowed with something Julia couldn't name. Was it jealousy? Or admiration buried under layers of bitterness? The air crackled between them, silent and sharp. And then, just like that, the past stormed in. Jax, Julia's old rival, smug and dangerous, materialized from the crowd with a grin that could slice glass. "Heard about your little moment with Carmine," he sneered. "I've got a deal for you. Join me. Big money, bigger reach. Or stay the outsider with your little light show." He held out his card, like a lifeline or a trap. Julia's hands trembled. The room spun. Choose the bright, blistering spotlight and risk burning out? Or stay true and keep the family fighting at her heels? Sophie's gaze bore into her, a silent war raging behind those sharp eyes. But beneath Sophie's anger, there was a secret Julia didn't know yet. A secret that could explode everything. The night pressed in, the music pulsing like a heartbeat, the crowd waiting, watching, whispering. And Julia, standing at the crossroads, felt the weight of every choice crushing down. The shoes blinked wildly under the lights, daring her to make the move. What would she do next? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without warning. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content that's coming. And, since you're there, leave that powerful like that helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know. What would she do next? Julia felt every eye in the room zeroed in on her, waiting for a decision. The tension hung, thick like fog. This was her moment. But then the ground beneath her felt unstable. "Carmine thinks your shoes are cool," Jax taunted, his sneer widening. "But what does that matter when—" Suddenly, a loud crash cut through the noise. Glass shattered, scattering like 1,000 stars. Everyone whipped around. The scene froze in a shared gasp. In the corner, a massive display of designer gowns, a centerpiece of the room, had toppled over, enveloping two guests under a cascade of fabric and mirrors. Panic spread like wildfire. "Sophie!" Julia shouted, instinctively moving toward the chaos, her heart hammering. The crowd surged forward, some rushing to help, some stepping back in shock. Then she saw it, the shard of a broken mirror, glistening malevolently on the floor. An unconscious woman, one of the gala organizers, lay sprawled beneath the heap of fabric. Julia's breath caught. She felt dizzy. This wasn't just any guest, it was her mother. "What are you doing here?" Julia whispered under her breath, shock and fear twisting in her gut. They had barely spoken in months. Her mother, known for her cruel critique of Julia's choices, had shown up after all. Now her mother was in a heap of designer chaos, unconscious. "Someone call 911!" shouted a man, his voice slicing through the confusion. Faces turned pale, eyes wide with dread. Julia knelt beside her mother, reaching for her hand that felt cold against her skin, like ice. "Mom, wake up, please!" Tears blurred her vision, mixing with the chaos around her. Jax stepped closer, feigning concern, but eyes sparkling with amusement. "Sure hope this doesn't ruin your big night, fashionista!" His voice dripped with sarcasm. She shot him a glare, her anger igniting a fire within her. But there was no time for him. No time for anything but her mother. Sophie was at her side now, urgency replacing disdain. "Julia, I'll get help." She dashed off into the crowd, determination etched on her face. The crowd buzzed with frantic whispers, eyes darting between Julia and the unconscious figure beneath the gowns. What happened? Is she all right? Maybe they should have built a sturdier display. The murmurs bounced around the room like sharp daggers. Julia squeezed her mother's hand, whispering words of urgency. "You have to be okay." But deep down, fear twisted, a cold echo reminding her of their last fight. How she wanted her mother to accept her choices, to embrace the wildness in her. Now, it felt like a lifetime ago. Words left unsaid. Memories buried beneath conflict. Then, oddly, Julia noticed something. A tattoo? She had never seen it before. Her stomach dropped, legs feeling wobbly. The design resembled her shoes, neon green spikes. What did this mean? A symbol of rebellion? A hidden connection they had never acknowledged? Sophie returned, breathless, with a paramedic right behind her. "Step back!" the paramedic shouted, moving in with urgency. Julia felt helpless as they crowded around her mother. Flashing lights from an ambulance grew louder outside, but all Julia could hear was her racing heart. At that moment, everything hung in the balance. Her shoes felt hot against her skin, a reminder of who she was, what she wanted. But underneath the surface, something darker bubbled, a secret that threatened to unravel everything she thought she understood about her mother, her family. The ambulance doors swung open, revealing chaos and hope. Julia looked at her mother, a question lodged in her throat. "What else are you hiding?" She silently begged the universe. But no answer came, only the harsh, cold reality of a night gone wrong. And just then, a huge crash echoed through the loft, a sound that wasn't the falling display. It was just the beginning of something much bigger, something that would shake the very foundation of Julia's world. The crash echoed again through the loft, a sound that sliced the air like glass shattering. The crowd shifted, murmurs growing into an anxious buzz. Julia's heart raced, but she couldn't take her eyes off her mother. The paramedics worked swiftly, but time felt frozen. Every second stretching like the fabric of her mother's broken world. Then, Just as the ambulance team began to assess her mother, a figure surged through the scene. A woman, wild-eyed and frantic, elbowed past shocked onlookers. Her hair was bright pink, like spun cotton candy, and her clothes were— "Move! I need to see her!" the woman shouted, her voice cracking. Julia squinted, her breath hitching. There was something so familiar about her. "Who are you?" Julia called out, pressing forward, confusion swirling in her chest. The woman locked eyes with Julia, and suddenly everything in the air shifted. I'm her sister," she stammered, eyes darting between Julia and her mother. "I've been looking for her." "Your sister?" Julia felt the world tilt. "Sister? What sister?" Her eyes flicked back to the paramedics still tending to her mother, who hadn't moved. Suspicion tangled with disbelief. "You're lying!" Julia shouted, voice shaking, anger blazing. "My mom doesn't have a sister!" She felt the heat of the crowd pressing in, their eyes wide and hungry, waiting for the next twist. "I do!" the woman cried, voice rising. "I didn't want her to find out, but it was too late." Before Julia could respond, the paramedics pulled a small device from an emergency bag. "We need her family," one shouted, looking around, panic lining his voice. "Now!" The woman stepped closer, desperation painted across her face. "She deserves to know the truth." "What are you talking about?" Julia demanded, feeling her heart drumming harder in her chest. Confusion morphed into fury. "You're a stranger." "Not really," the woman said softly, her voice breaking. "I'm your aunt. Julia, she left me when I was young, after the accident. The family turned away. She just couldn't handle it." "Accident?" Julia echoed, trying to grasp what she was saying. The words felt heavy, loaded like bricks. "What accident? My mom never mentioned you. Why would she—" But the woman, tears spilling, cut her off. "Your mother has so many secrets. She never wanted to admit what happened. But I'm here now. You all need to understand." The paramedics lifted Julia's mother onto a stretcher, and the reality felt like a punch to the gut. The crowd buzzed. Whispers filled the air. Is this true? What does this mean? And all Julia could do was watch. "Stop!" she yelled, stepping back. "You can't just come here and drop a bomb like that. I don't even know you." The woman's eyes were pleading. "But you need to know. There's so much you don't understand." And then, from behind Julia, Jack stepped in. "What's this? Family reunion? Right here?" His voice filled with a mocking tone. "Looks like your night just got a lot messier, fashionista." "Shut up, Jax!" Julia shouted, fear and anger bubbling up. She was overwhelmed by everything. The tension, the chaos, and now this stranger claiming to be family. Just then, a loud siren wailed in the distance, gaining speed. The night felt alive, electric with uncertainty. Julia's world was unraveling, tangled in lies and truths she didn't understand, swirling like the lights on her shoes. As her mother was wheeled away, she couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The weight of the truth hovered over her like a storm cloud ready to burst. What did it all mean? Everything she thought she knew was shifting, crumbling before her eyes. In that moment, she realized the night was just the beginning. The truth, as ugly and messy as it might be, was about to surface, and it would change everything. As the sirens wailed closer, Julia's world continued to spin with chaos. The crowd was thick with anxious energy. Whispers buzzed around her like angry bee. "What is going on? Who is she? Is she really her sister?" Everyone was watching, waiting for the next act of this twisted play. "Get back!" the paramedic barked, pushing through the crowd. Julia's heart pounded. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to jump, but unsure of what waited below. Her eyes darted back to her mother. The stretcher, now moving, bumped along as they lifted her to the ambulance. "Julia, we need to talk," the woman shouted, her voice cutting through the panic. "You need to know your family's history. Stop. Just stop," Julia yelled, fists clenched at her sides. The revelation staggered her. "An aunt?" She paused, caught in confusion. This stranger couldn't be trusted, could she? "My family is fine. We don't need you." "Fine? You think your mother is fine?" The woman pressed, desperation lined in her voice. The crowd leaned in, curiosity painted on every face. "The accident. She wouldn't want you to know because she was involved. You have to confront the truth." Confront what truth? Julia's breath quickened. "Are you saying it's her fault? That she caused something? Something bigger happened." The woman's gaze pierced through Julia like a knife. "She kept it all secret. But it's dangerous, Julia. Your whole life is built on lies." And then, that's when the unexpected happened. A loud crash, not far from the commotion. A weighty object fell, and the crowd gasped. Everyone turned. A heavy metal structure had broken free from the ceiling, a set piece from the art installation, crashing down right where Jack stood. An instant before he could react, time slowed. Julia's heart dropped. "Jax!" she screamed, but the sound was lost in the metal clatter and wild energy of the room. People staggered back, panic erupting anew. "Call an ambulance," someone yelled. But another voice shouted, "Get everyone out!" Julia squeezed her eyes shut, legs about to buckle, but she forced them to move. "Jax, no!" She pushed through the crowd, fear driving her. The weight of his laughter from moments ago now twisted in her stomach like a knife. There he was, sprawled beneath the wreckage, unconscious. But it wasn't just Jax. Holding him, clinging to him, were two more figures, Sophie and that pink-haired woman. Julia saw their eyes wide, shocked. "Help! Someone help!" Julia's voice rose above the chaos. As paramedics rushed towards them, the pink-haired woman turned to Julia, eyes shimmering with unspoken pain. "It's all connected," she cried. "Your mother tried to protect you from the truth, but it won't let go." Questions flooded Julia's mind, but darkness seeped in, drowning the logic. Between her mother, the stranger, and now Jax, the lines were blurring. Lies, secrets, and danger spun around her like a cyclone. "Move! Get the injured out!" a paramedic shouted. Urgency laying layers of weight in the air. Julia felt paralyzed, stuck in the center of the storm. Just then, a familiar yellow glow flickered against the chaos, Julia's shoes. The lights pulsated with a rhythm of their own, as if they were alive, almost mocking her in that moment. She stumbled back, feeling a collective judgment, all eyes still on her, waiting for something to happen. Everything felt heavy and surreal, comfort and chaos intermingled. The truth, dark and lurking, was waiting to pounce. Desperation clawed at her insides. The sirens wailed again, but something felt different now. Suddenly, the world blurred, and she could hear pieces of conversations. What did she do? There's more to this. Julia looked at the rubble, at Jax and the pink-haired woman. They weren't the only ones hiding secrets. "What else are you telling me?" she gasped, panic sparking anew. In that moment, with fractures forming in every relationship, she realized she was at the front line of something much bigger than herself. And what was the larger truth that lay in the shadows, waiting to pull her in? The crash echoed in her mind, amplifying the tension of the night yet to unfold. All she could do was wait, breath caught, heart racing, as the universe spun out thoughts she didn't want to face. As the weight of all the chaos pressed down on Julia, uncertainty hung thick in the air. The paramedics maneuvered around fallen debris, and the pink-haired woman stared at her. The crowd waited, breaths held like they were froze. Her eyes were wide, desperate. Your mother never meant for this to happen. What are you even saying? Julia shouted back, tears threatening to spill. She could feel the anger burning in her chest. Jax lay there, unconscious, Sophie beside him, both of them vulnerable in the rubble. The air felt electric with fear and disbelief. Suddenly, another voice rose through the noise, sharp and commanding. "Get back! We need space." It was a police officer, pushing through the crowd, but he had eyes only for the pink-haired woman. "Ma'am, you need to step aside," he ordered, but she didn't move, throwing her hands in the air, desperate. "Why don't you understand?" she cried. "I'm here to protect Julia. She has to know the truth." The officer's face hardened. What truth? Then, just like that, everything changed. From the back of the crowd, a figure pushed through. A man with a familiar silhouette and a face that struck Julia like lightning. It was her father. His expression was grim, but there was determination in his steps. "Stop! Don't touch her!" he yelled as he rushed to the front, eyes locked on the pink-haired woman. "Dad?" Julia gasped, confusion and shock crashing against her. He never showed up to events, never even answered her calls lately. "What are you doing here?" Her father turned to face her. "We need to go, now." "What?" Panic shot through her. "You can't just—" The pink-haired woman's face crumbled. "No, wait! You can't leave! Not now! You have to know who I am!" Her voice was raw, pleading. "You don't get to just come in here and—" Julia began. But her father interrupted, his voice low and urgent. "Listen to me, Julia. This isn't the time. We can't." But the woman stepped into the spotlight, tears streaming. "I'm your mother's sister. Your family is more tangled than you know. You need to understand. The accident. It was more than you think." "What accident?" Julia shouted, her mind racing. Before the woman could respond, the ground trembled. The metal structure that had crashed moments earlier shifted within the crowd like it was about to collapse again. Gasps erupted around them. Then, bam! A deafening sound as the ceiling above started to cave in. Showers of dust and debris raining like confetti. The crowd screamed and scattered, fleeing in every direction while panic gripped their hearts. "Run!" someone shouted, but the officer barked. "Stay calm. We need to get down." Julia's father pulled her toward safety just as another piece of the ceiling broke free, landing dangerously close to where Jax lay. Julia's heart dropped. "Jax!" She broke away from her father, eyes locked on the tangled bodies. The pink-haired woman followed, her expression wild. "We can't leave him!" But Julia's father grabbed her arm, pulling her back. "We have to go, now! Your mom needs you!" "What mom?" Julia bit back, fury boiling over. "What's going on?" And then with a sickening jolt, Julia realized. Her world had shattered before her. It wasn't just about Jax. It was about her mother, her family, and secrets buried deep. As she fought against her father's grip, rage and fear collided in her chest. She heard the pink-haired woman whispering something to her father. Their voices were low, filled with urgency. "Julia," he said, voice shaking, "there's something you don't know about the night of the accident." The walls felt like they were closing in. Julia's mind raced, battling to understand. Every secret was piling up, suffocating her. A truth she didn't want to face was staring her down. Just then, the lights flickered and went out, plunging the room into darkness. A sound cracked through the air, her shoes blinking wildly, casting erratic shadows. And in that dark, something shifted. She stood at the edge, watching everything unravel, ready to leap into the unknown, but everything felt different. Despair filled her, and before she could move, a cry echoed through the chaos. "Help! Someone!" And then a voice she recognized pierced through the fear. Her mother's voice. "Julia, please!" In that moment, the ground gave way beneath her. All Julia could do was breathe. Everything was about to change. And as she plunged into the uncertainty, she knew nothing would ever be the same again. The lights flickered wildly, casting eerie shadows as the panic escalated. Julia felt her heart thumping against her ribs, like a drum calling out for answers. "Mom!" Her voice echoed through the chaos, blending with the cries of the crowd. But the noise swallowed it whole. "Tighten up! Everyone back!" The officer's voice sliced through the air, filled with urgency. Julia's father pulled her toward the door. "We need to move." But she couldn't tear her gaze away from the wreckage, from Jax and Sophie, still buried beneath the debris. "Jax!" she shouted again, desperate. Each cry felt heavy, pulling her deeper into the vortex of chaos. She could feel the building tension, like an unsettled storm, ready to burst. A shadow fell across her, blocking the flashing lights. It was the pink-haired woman, her eyes wide, her body trembling. "Please, we don't have much time." "Move aside!" Julia's dad shouted at her. "Do you understand? We have to go." "No!" The pink-haired woman's voice erupted, fierce and raw. "You need to hear this. You need to understand." Tears streamed down her face. "Julia, this is bigger than you know." Something in her tone made Julia pause. She looked from her father to the woman, confused, frightened. "What do you mean?" "There's a reason your mother never wanted to talk about her sister." "About what happened? It." Her voice broke, the words tumbling out like stones. A gasp rippled through the crowd as another loud crash reverberated in the air. It was almost like the world was holding its breath. The debris slightly shifted, dust swirling upwards, blinding everyone for a moment. "Get down!" a voice screamed. But it was a shrill echo, lost amidst the chaos. Then, almost surreal, everything stopped. An overwhelming silence filled the space. Jewels of fear glistened in Julia's vision. A moment stretched long. And then she stared straight into the eyes of the pink-haired woman, and something shifted in that gaze. Something dark, something alive. And then, suddenly, the woman collapsed. She hit the floor hard, her body going limp. Gasps erupted from the crowd. "What happened?" someone shrieked, scrambling back. "Get help!" Julia yelled, but the words felt useless as she stumbled toward the woman. "Wake up, please!" But as she knelt beside her flicked body, a surge of recognition hit Julia. A glimpse of a familiar tattoo peeked from under the woman's sleeve. It was the same design as her mother's. "No," Julia's voice wavered. "What is happening, Julia?" Her father's voice grew frantic. "We need to go! Now!" But then it hit her like ice water crashing down. "She's my aunt?" His face went white. "We don't have time for this!" Sophie staggered to her feet, brushing debris off her clothes, eyes wide with shock. "This is crazy!" And as if a curtain had fallen, revealing a truth long hidden, the woman's eyes fluttered open. You need to know!" she gasped, struggling against the ground. "Your mother was trying to protect you from what?" Julia pressed, feeling the world tilt under her. But then, chaos erupted again. A loud bang echoed through the room, a gunshot. The sound was deafening, and Julia froze, the fear ripping through her. The crowd shrieked, scattering, confusion reigning. Eyes darted around for the source as Julia's heart raced. She felt the air leave her lungs. "What was that?" she screamed. "No! Everyone get down!" someone shouted. More shots rang out, chaos escalating into a frenzy. Julia's father grabbed her and pulled her back, shielding her with his body. She felt the pounding of her heart rival the chaos outside. The world shifted once again, a new danger emerging, and all those layers of hidden truths felt like they were colliding in an explosive climax. "What's happening?" The pink-haired woman lay there, eyes wide, whispers spilling forth. But then Julia's focus sharpened on the heart of the storm. Please, tell me the truth." But just then, the darkness fell again, and the sirens howled in the distance, a chilling promise that nothing was what it seemed. Julia stood at the edge of her reality, the questions bearing down like the weight of 1,000 secrets about to unravel. In that moment, everything felt heavy with uncertainties, 1,000 paths stretching out before her, any one capable of changing the course of her life. Her eyes searched for an answer, but the truth slipped away. And as another shot rang out, it was clear. The night was far from over. The real story was still waiting to unfold. The sirens blared, drowning everything in a shriek of chaos as Julia struggled. The crowd jolted back, some screaming, others stumbling over each other in a panic. "Get down!" someone yelled, and Julia ducked, instinctively grabbing her father's hand, pulling him closer. This was all surreal. The fear clawed at her gut, squeezing tighter with every heartbeat. But then, from the corner of her eye, she caught a flash of movement. Sophie, shaking off debris, her face pale but determined. "I'm okay. Just get your mom," she shouted, a fierce light blazing in her eyes. And then it happened. Another crash erupted behind them, something heavy falling from above. But this time, it was followed by an explosive scream. "Julia!" That voice, it was her mother's. The sound shot like a bullet through the disarray, striking a nerve deep within Julia. She whipped around, heart racing. Where was her mother? The paramedics struggled with the stretcher, trying to maneuver through the frightened crowd. Julia's breath hitched. She couldn't think. All she could see was the pink-haired woman, the debris, and shadows closing in. "Julia, we can't stay here," her father urged, panic etched in his features. But the pink-haired woman was trying to sit up now, desperation flashing in her eyes, pointing toward the chaos. "Your mother, she's in danger. Julia, trust me." With each word, a new wave of fear gripped Julia. "What do you mean?" Just then, another loud bang resonated, echoing through the loft again. "What now?" someone cried out. Then, silence, the kind that felt like a secret was about to be revealed. And then, everything erupted. A figure burst through the gloom, hair wild and unruly, moving like a bolt of lightning. And in the chaos, time seemed to freeze. It was Julia's mother, exposed beneath layers of confusion. But she wasn't alone. A shadowy figure stood beside her, someone Julia recognized too well. "Jax, get away from her!" Jax shouted, rushing forward. But before he could reach her, her mother's hands shot up defensively. "I'm not the enemy," she pleaded, her eyes darting around like trapped moths. "Mom, what is happening?" Julia yelled, feeling a tornado of emotions centering on the chaos around her. And then, shock. Julia's gaze traced back to her mother, an unmistakable glint of metal, a gun tucked beneath her jacket. The sight shattered her world. "Mom, no!" The crowd gasped, shifting away. Murmurs erupted. "Is this a setup? What's going on?" "I can explain," her mother shouted, voice trembling. Julia's heart raced. The weight of betrayal hung like fog. "Explain what?" Julia's voice cracked. "That you've lied to me my whole life?" "I had to protect you," her mother shot back, but the urgency in her voice only twisted the knife deeper. "Protect me or protect yourself?" But just then, in the most unexpected moment, chaos erupted again. A flash of blue lights strobed through the nearby windows, sirens blaring, inching closer. "Look, the police!" one voice cried, excitement woven with terror. Julia felt herself being pulled deeper into a mystery. Her mother's gaze flickered, uncertainty painted across her features. "We need to leave now," she cried, voice raw. But to where? Everything was a swirl of confusion, exploding relationships and shattered illusions. There were so many questions. But then, with a deafening crash, a wall section crumbled, revealing something hidden behind. A vault, pure darkness spilling out like secrets trapped for years. Rushing to the unveiling shadows, everyone froze. It felt like fate was about to unveil its final act. "Get back! We don't know what's in there!" an officer shouted, trying to regain control. But Julia stood riveted in place. What could be buried there? "Mom!" she yelled, turning towards her mother, the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "What did you do?" The air thickened, every face shadowed in awe, as they all shared a breathless moment, waiting for whatever insane truth lay ahead. It was as if the floor was ready to drop from beneath them. Julia's heart raced. The night had transformed into a horror story, woven with family betrayals and secrets. What lay in that vault? What had her mother been hiding all this time? As the lights dimmed and the shadows loomed larger, one thing became clear. This was just the beginning, and the ending would be something no one could predict. Julia felt the ground shift beneath her as she braced for whatever would come next, holding on to the fragile thread of family that was about to unravel. The room held its breath as shadows danced in the chaos, the air thick with tension and disbelief. Julia's heart raced, every fiber of her being wired to the chaos unleashed before her. The dim lights flickered, eerily highlighting the scattered faces, each reflecting fear and confusion. Her mind raced, grasping for clarity, as her mother's voice echoed like a haunting melody. "Mom!" Julia yelled again, urgency vibrating in her voice. Her mother stood there, shaking, the glimpse of the gun still visible, casting doubt like a heavy fog over everything. The crowd edged closer, anxiety driving their murmurs. "Get back!" the officer ordered again, shoving against the throw. "Don't! Trust me on this," he said sharply, desperation bleeding from every word. The tension was a taut string, ready to snap at any moment. Everyone held their breath. What was about to happen? And then it did. From somewhere behind them, the sound of footsteps thundered. A group of masked men burst into the room, armed and shouting. "Get on the ground!" one of them yelled, voice sharp and demanding. Panic erupted like a bursting dam. "Down! Everyone down!" another one shouted. Julia ducked, pulling her father down beside her, heart pounding like a hammer in her chest. "Jax! Sophie!" she gasped, but the sound disappeared into the frantic noise. Her mother's cries filled the space, but Julia couldn't focus on anything but the chaos erupting around her. Then, amid the confusion, the pink-haired woman grabbed her arm tightly, pulling her close. "We have to go! Now!" she shouted, eyes wide with fear. "They're after us!" Who are they? Julia's mind reeled, everything flipping upside down. This was supposed to be a night of fashion, of recognition. Not this. Your mother, she didn't tell you everything. The woman's grip was iron, pulling Julia toward the exit. "It's all connected." "Connected how?" Julia demanded, but the noise swelled. The masked men were shouting orders, chaos folding in on itself, wrapping around her like a heavy blanket. She fought against the woman's hold, frantic for answers. "Your mother, it wasn't just an accident," the woman said, voice lowering to a whisper as they reached the edge of the crowd. "She caused it. That's why she's hiding. That's why she was never around." The words hit Julia like a freight train. "What?" But before the woman could explain, a shot rang out, a sound that tore through the air, sharp and chilling. Julia flinched, fear pooling into confusion. What had her mother done? Was this all some mad web spun of lies? "Focus!" her father yelled, yanking them both toward the back of the room. But there was no escape. The masked men were blocking every path, eyes darting around for anyone brave enough to move. Another gunshot fired, but this time it wasn't directed at Julia. It hit the wall above her mother, sending dust raining down. "Mom!" Julia screamed, panic rising. This was spiraling out of control fast. Just then, Jax shouted from somewhere in the debris, "Get away from her!" But in a heartbeat, He was pulled back, a man gripping his jacket, eyes wild. Sophie was beside him, directing people to move. "I won't let you hurt her!" Jack shouted defiantly. But the masked man sneered. "You don't get a say in this." Everything erupted again, a flurry of movement, voices rising above the din. Julia's world spun. Her mother's face was a mask of fear, eyes darting between the chaos. "Clear the area," an officer yelled, trying to assert control as people stumbled in every direction. But Julia barely registered it, focus narrowing. In that moment, clarity hit her like a flash of lightning. The truth was buried under layers of fear, and suddenly she knew she had to confront her mother. Secrets or not, they had to face each other. "Mom, you need to tell me everything, right now," Julia yelled, voice firm, pushing through the crowd toward her. But just as mother and daughter were about to lock eyes, a booming voice cut through, clear and cold. "Step away from her, Julia." It was the pink-haired woman, now standing between Julia and her mother, eyes blazing with a fierce protectiveness. "You can't trust her. She's the reason we're all here. Why she's in danger. Why we're here." Julia's breath caught. Shock collapsed around her, a heavy weight. "What?" The room fell silent, an electric pause hanging in the air. Suddenly, the pink-haired woman reached for Julia's mother, fingers trembling as she uncovered a hidden badge. A police badge. "You're supposed to be in jail!" she screamed, and the truth felt like a slap across Julia's face. "Everything?" Julia whispered, her heart racing as the world crumbled around them. "Is this really happening?" Her mother's expression shifted, a mix of defiance and something darker, the secret buried so deep it could shatter everything. "Mom, you're a cop?" "No," her mother shouted, fear flashing bright in her eyes. "I had no choice." But before they could process the chaos, it exploded once more. Another figure stepped from the shadows. A man laughing softly. "Let's not forget, I'm the one who holds the real key to all of this." And in that moment, everything Julia thought she knew flipped upside down. The world spinning as she stood on the brink, ready to plunge into an abyss of revelations, relationships, and dangers that would forever change her. The man stepped forward, eyes sharp, a predator's gleam in his gaze. "You're all just puppets, waiting for the string to snap," he sneered. The crowd gasped, tension pulsing in palpable waves as they awaited his next move. Julia's heart thundered in her chest. "What do you mean?" she asked, rage bubbling beneath her fear, stronger than steel. What could he possibly have to do with her mother, with her? He let out a low laugh, the kind that sent shivers down her spine. "Your mother, Fee. I always knew." He gestured to the chaos swirling around them. "This is just the beginning." "What are you talking about?" Her voice trembled, but she pressed on, desperate to understand. "Who are you?" "Does it matter?" He stepped closer, the air thick with his menace. "What matters is that your mother was the key, and now we'll see how far lies can stretch before they snap." Julia's mind raced, piecing together fragments of the night, the connection, the chaos. And now this man turning everything even darker. "You're lying. My mom is... She's not who you think she is. She's my mom!" That desperation clung tightly around her like a shadow. But he laughed again, deep and mocking. "Ah, but every mother has secrets, Julia. Some are just more tangled than others." And then, with a flick of his wrist, everything shifted. The room lit up like a flashbulb, sparks flying, and in that instant, someone screamed. A chilling cry that shattered the air. It was a different sound, full of terror and heartbreak. Julia whipped her head around, Her mom was stumbling backward, her face white with fear as she clutched her chest. No, not now. Julia lunged forward, fighting against the growing crowd. But chaos erupted again. The masked men were moving closer, weapons drawn, eyes like ice. The tension twisted in her chest so tight she could barely breathe. "Get out! Everyone, out!" an officer shouted, trying to contain the chaos. But sounds of panic and cries filled the loft, drowning out any sense of order. But Julia's eyes were locked on her mother. "You need to be okay!" Her voice was raw with panic as she pushed through bodies, desperate to reach her. Suddenly, the pink-haired woman stepped in front of Julia, blocking her way. "No, you can't! You can't get close!" "Julia!" "Why not? Is she hurt?" Julia's voice cracked, emotions colliding violently inside her. And then, in a moment that felt suspended in time, her mom slumped to the ground. The world around her seemed to tumble into a void. She stared in horror as her mother's figure sank into the shadows of the group. "Mom!" Julia yelled, panic surging through her as she finally broke past the barricade of desperate bodies, reaching her side. But as she dropped to her knees, her heart stopped. She caught a glimpse of something in her mother's hand, something glistening, a small silver key. "Julia, trust me, you need to," her mother gasped. But her breath came in shallow gulps. Her eyes were wide with fear, drowning in despair. "What does it unlock?" Julia begged, desperation spilling over. But before she could process her mother's answer, the man smirked, stepping forward like a wolf circling its prey. "Didn't you know? That key is what kept this night from unraveling completely." The world shifted again. Just then, the lights flickered violently and went out. Darkness crashed in, dragging everything into shadow. A voice echoed in the void as whispers began to swirl. "The truth is deeper than you know." And then, an explosion. The air ignited, and the sound blasted through the darkness like a thunderclap. The bright flash momentarily blinded Julia, the crowd screaming, the air thick with confusion. She stumbled in the chaos, heart pounding, desperate for clarity as the world crashed around her. Amidst the chaos, she felt a jolt, a realization burning bright. As everything erupted in chaos, Julia connected the dots. The man standing there wasn't just anyone. He was connected to everything. To her mother's past, to the lies, the secrets, the accident. "Your mother isn't just my enemy," he proclaimed, voice slicing through the clamor. "She's the reason it all began. And Julia, so are you." In that moment of realization, her heart sank to her stomach. What did he mean? The weight of truth bore down on her, shackling her. Everything felt bleak and dark, unearthed secrets pulling at the edges of her mind. Confusion intensified. With a brewing storm of questions, Julia felt the ground shift beneath her, her world tilting toward a chasm of unknown fate. If her mother represented everything she believed, and this man was a key to the hidden past, what did that mean for Julia? Suddenly, another explosion rocked the room, throwbacks of the previous moments crashing back, tightening the chaos around her. The shockwave pushed her back, and she fell to the floor. As she lay there, gut churning, the questions remained shrouded like shadows. What was true? What was a lie? And why did the key seem to hold the power to change everything? And just like that, the mystery deepened, hanging in the air, waiting for someone to unlock it. The first thread of truth had pulled, and Julia knew everything would come undone. The answers awaited, looming darkly over her future. The echoes of tragedy mingled with the chilling unknown, leaving everyone longing for answers. The flash of lights pierced through the chaos, illuminating panic-stricken faces frozen in shock. Julia felt the weight of the moment, gripping her mother's arm tight. "What are you saying? Why did you keep all this from me?" The urgency in her voice rose, each word bursting with disbelief. "Julia, her mother began, but the words fell away, swallowed by the storm crashing around them. The unmistakable sound of sirens drew closer, blending with frenzied screams that echoed off the walls. Then, without warning, another explosion rocked the room. This one was louder and more violent. A wall crumbled to the left, sending debris flying in every direction. People ducked, screams crescendoed. And panic became a wild beast tearing through the crowd. "You need to choose, Julia. Are you with her or with the truth?" "Stop!" Julia yelled, thrusting her arms out, desperation spilling from her. She bashed her mind against the layers of confusion. Everything felt slow and chaotic. The masked men swarmed. They pointed their guns into the crowd, eyes darting, panic reflected in their features. "Everyone down!" one barked, and people dropped to the ground. In that madness, Julia's eyes darted to her mother, whose face was pale, mouth trembling. The key slipped from her fingers, clattering to the ground. Julia felt a rush of fear. "Mom!" She lunged, but was halted by the unexpected grasp of the pink-haired woman's hand. "Don't!" Julia twisted, ready to respond. "I need to help her. Listen! She's not who you think!" the woman pleaded, voice urgent, eyes wide with revelation. "She's not just a mother. She was undercover. The reason she's so afraid is that she's wrapped in a massive investigation. This was meant to be her last job. It's all gone wrong." "What?" Julia blinked, a cocktail of emotions swirling. Anger, heartbreak, betrayal. But then, a thought struck. "You're lying." "Am I?" The woman's eyes darted, scanning the chaos. "Everything your mother did, the secrets she kept, they were all to protect you." "No!" Julia shook her head, fighting the rising tide of emotions. "No, she didn't protect me. She lied to me." Just then, a figure surged from the shadows, mixing with the swirling mayhem. It was her dad, eyes wild, breathing heavily. "Julia," he yelled, pushing through an opening. "You have to trust us. Your mother made choices she couldn't take back, ones that put us all in danger." "But why?" She felt tears surge, the emotional roller coaster growing unbearable. "Why didn't she tell me? Was my whole life just a lie?" And then there was a deafening noise. The lights flickered and dimmed again, and as if summoned by her feelings, the floor beneath them trembled. "Get down!" her father shouted again. But chaos escalated. An unexpected force blew through, knocking everyone back. Suddenly there was light. A blinding flash enveloped the room, lighting up the chaos in a surreal glow, just as a loud boom shook the foundation. Everything seemed to happen in slow motion. A wall caved in, unveiling a hidden room behind. Dust hung thick, swirling like smoke, and amidst the confusion, Julia spotted something. A small woman, perhaps in her late teens, crawling out from the shadows with wild eyes. "Please, help!" she cried, the desperation in her voice clawing its way into Julia's heart. "Who are you?" Julia shouted, feeling an ominous weight growing in her chest. "What do you want?" "I know everything," the girl shouted, and Julia's world spun anew. "I know what your mother did. I know why they're after us." "What?" Julia felt herself teetering on the edge of an emotional cliff. Before the girl could answer, another gunshot rang out, piercing through the air. And in that split second, the pink-haired woman lunged toward Julia, pushing her into the wall just as a bullet zinged past, narrowly missing her. The chaos erupted again. Screams, confusion, bodies everywhere. It felt as if the entire world had gone mad. And then, as if scripted by fate, the figure of a man stepped through the shadows, face obscured, but eyes glinting dangerously. "You're all in way over your heads," he declared, voice smooth and chilling. "And it's too late for any of you to back out." In that moment, everything flipped. The girl, her mother, the pink-haired woman, it all connected in a horrifying web. "What do you mean?" Julia cried, confusion and panic rising. The man's smile widened, revealing an unsettling truth. "You see, Julia, your mother isn't just a piece on the board. She's the queen. And your entire life has been a setup, a massive chess game. And unfortunately, everyone's about to learn what happens when they play with fire." The room fell eerily quiet, a sense of impending dread washing over them all. Julia could feel her stomach drop. What does that even mean? But as the man moved closer, shadows dancing around him, she realized. A truth she wasn't ready for loomed just ahead, ready to pull her under. And then darkness consumed them all.